Okay, next we've got Nick Curtis, the Executive Chairman of Northern Minerals. Nick is, as I said, the Exec Chairman, has more than 30 years experience in the mining and finance industry with particular knowledge of the rare earth sector. In 2001, Nick took control of ASX-listed Lynas Gold and repositioned it as Lynas Corporation, the buyer and developer of the Mount Weld Rare Earth Project and the related Malaysian processing facility, which is the basis of Lynas Corporation today. Prior to this, Nick founded Sino Gold Limited, which was listed on the ASX and became a top 100 company before being taken over by Eldorado Gold. Alongside his role at Northern Minerals, Nick is also the founder and director of the BBI Group, which is focused on building an iron ore system in the Pilbara. Nick was awarded a Member of the Order of Australia and is also a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Please join me in making Nick welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Jeremy. It's certainly a great pleasure to be back at Diggers and Dealers with a different hat on this time. I feel like here we go, here's the show again. But it is nice to see such an enthusiastic and vibrant response here to the whole critical minerals sector. I will explain why I'm back in rare earths, and it is about this project. But before I do that, I want to do what I think is necessary for all companies to do, acknowledge the community within which we operate. Community is at the heart of the capacity of all of us to actually operate, and we need to engage well with them. So I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands upon which Northern Minerals operates, the Jaru people. We want to recognise their unique cultural heritage, and we want to pay our respects to all the members of those communities and to their elders past and present, and recognise that we have a duty and obligation to continue to protect and preserve the cultural, spiritual and educational practices. It is a critical element of community. They are one of the constituents that this company is about. The other constituents include, of course, our shareholder base and the opportunities that we can have to grow the business for everyone concerned. It is a very exciting business. Let me actually tell you why, and cut to the point about the investment highlights. In other words, I'll give you the summary first, and then I'll give you the pieces. There are three key points that make this a very exciting project. The first point is probably the most critical because it doesn't exist without it, the geology. We have at the Browns Range deposit, we call it, up near the Tanami, the world's only known hard rock deposit of metals you've scarcely heard of, dysprosium and terbium, and they have a critical role in the world's electrification program. I will come back to that. Not only the world's only known hard rock deposit, but the world's highest grade dysprosium and terbium ore body. And that is what's extraordinary about this particular deposit. It's been sitting there for 16 years. Its time has properly come. We are progressing to development rapidly. A critical point is we're sold out. We have sold all the concentrate we can produce from the known resources at Browns Range from one specific system we are developing called Wolverine. And we've sold that to Iluka to feed into the really strategically critical Eneabba rare earths plant, which they are building. And I believe that's a great opportunity, not just for us and our shareholders and community, but broadly in Australia to have such a facility there. We are also essentially very close to shovel ready. We're finishing our DFS, which is a refresh of a 2015 DFS, and I'll come to the detail of that later on. But we're now active in financing discussions, and we see a clear pathway to production out in 2026 with an FID event, first half 24. So it's real, it's here, and it's a new commodity for the market. We're not a rare earth company. We're a dysprosium and terbium company. That's our monetisation. 85% of our value is these two metals. And just a sidebar comment, when I was beating around the track on Linus, we started talking about neodymium, praseodymium, cerium, and people's eyes glazed over. We invented this thing called the rare earth oxide basket. It doesn't actually exist in physical terms. There's no bar of rare earth oxide. It's the individual metals that become important. And I think the time has come to analyse the industry from the perspective of the granularity of the supply chains for each individual component of the rare earth basket in a way that will give us greater clarity on, the differentiation between dysprosium and terbium and cerium or some of the other metals. But I am very excited about the prospects for dysprosium and terbium. Let me talk about the market opportunity. Again, I go back, because I can, to the beginnings of the rare earth journey. There were applications asunder for rare earths, from glass, polishing, to nickel metal hydride batteries, if anybody can remember that, before lithium came around, to all sorts of technical applications. And just about every rare earth had its role in place. 20 years on, the technology has moved on, a lot of substitution has gone on, and the killer app has been discovered. And the killer app for rare earths is without doubt permanent neodymium iron boron permanent magnets. Now those are going to drive very high-powered electrification, hybrid, we know the applications, wind turbines, EV growth, defence and other applications to a more minor level. But it's a very high growth market. I'll show you later on, but basically compounding at the high end of the applications at about 9.5% per annum or 10% per annum. Governments are very aware of the criticality of that supply chain and are throwing a lot of money at supporting the development of that supply chain. And the geopolitical position is clearly a driver for that. You can see the governments we've listed there, they are all wanting independence of the China supply chain. Today, China supplies 95% of the world's magnets, and there's a reason for that, and it's called dysprosium and terbium. So we are a critical part of that supply chain. Australia recognises its role in that with the large support it gave Iluka towards building its Eneabba plant. We have a very strong partnership with Iluka now, and I'll come back to that more thoroughly. But this is a critical area strategically. There's a key reason why it's critical, and it's just this is a slightly nerdy technical point for a moment, but it puts in context. Neodymium and praseodymium do have the best magnetic capacity of any of these rare earth metals, but they have an Achilles heel, and that Achilles heel is the temperature environment within which they operate. Above 70 degrees C, they lose, and they don't just fade, they lose their magnetic quality. Don't hold me to the 70 degrees C, but approximately around there, they lose their magnetic quality. And there's only one known way of changing that, and that's to add between 3 and 10%, depending on the application, of dysprosium and terbium to the total magnet alloy. Now, China has, and actually Myanmar in China, nearly 100% of the dysprosium and terbium market. It's not surprising, therefore, that China has 95% of the permanent magnet market. So if we are going to create the government's objective of a diversified supply away from just Chinese supply for permanent magnets, critical to lots of applications which we assume will grow massively in the future, we must develop that supply outside of China. We are the only known source outside of China of scale in dysprosium and terbium, therefore the only known source that can in fact enable the development of high-performance magnets outside of China. And in a sense, the more we produce, the more neodymium and praseodymium can be consumed in the high-growth applications. Let me tell you about the deposit a little bit. This is a mining conference after all. So the project itself is very isolated, up in the Kimberley on the edge of the Tanami Desert. It's been known since 2000, for 16 years. It was explored for uranium, but instead of uranium, same traces, they found this quite unusual, extremely unusual mineral called xenotime, which does occur across other rare earth deposits, but in small quantities. But in fact, in this case, it was the primary, it's 90%, 90+% of the mineralisation that we are, rare earths containing mineralisation in the ore body. That led to a long process, a long time of development in the last boom cycle. Northern Minerals was there, it didn't get into production. It then went into a long cycle of exploration activity and developing its very large ground position up there. It then decided in 2015 to get a feasibility study, but couldn't get that monetised because of circumstances. And in 2018, it developed a pilot plant up on site. And that's a really key issue. It's had 3 years of operating a full-scale pilot plant, commercial level. We've sold over 1,000 tonnes of concentrate of the material, and we know what the process looks like. I'll come back to that quickly. We are moving now, Wolverine, towards production. The timetable for us is that we should finish our feasibility study this year, and we will be looking, and we are already in advanced discussions with NAIF and others on funding to fund this project into the first half of next year for an FID event there. We're leveraging off the work done on the pilot plant. We're leveraging off some of the infrastructure done off the pilot plant, but it is a $500 million project, and it's not to be taken lightly. We will develop a plant scale version of the plant we piloted up there, and an open pit and underground mine. As I said to you, we have sold all our material to Iluka, and what we haven't sold, because we grow, they have the first right of refusal on. We will be 20% of the feedstock into the Eneabba plant. But one brief point that's critical, between the Iluka neodymium and praseodymium and our dysprosium and terbium, that plant will be the only plant in the Western world, and probably the only single rare earths operation, where you will be able to source the exact combination of metals that you need to produce rare earth magnets. And I think that's a potentially big strategic position for Australia, to be able to have that combination of materials and produce uniquely outside of China the combination of materials required to produce the magnets. They have been very big partners of ours in this. They've supported us by giving us a a base price, which helps our bankability, and we have a profit share participation associated with the actual price of rare earths, so we are exposed to the upside price despite them giving us some base support as well. They want us to be funded. They are potentially an equity participant in the FID equity event, and we have a very strong and positive relationship with Iluka in this process. The geology is intriguing, and I'm not going to go into it at all here, but we are repositioning the company. We did reposition the company away from being an exploration play towards a pre-development play. It's a medium-sized operation. We've reduced complexity. At Lynas, we went all the way down to having to build the whole chemical end of the plant because we couldn't do anything else. Here, we're restricting it to building the concentrator. And so it's all activity that is well known. It's about a 300-metre shear zone that we will develop called Wolverine, about 25 metres wide, nothing not known in Australia. Underground mine and simple crush grind, MagSep and float circuit. The mining is well known, well tendered, and we are in the process of getting the results back from that. The processing, as I said, is a very establishing processing flow sheet. There isn't anything super magical about our process. It's mining Australian style in the Kimberley. The mine operations is leveraged on the existing facilities. We've even got an airstrip up there at the moment, and that does cut time and money from us. The deposit itself has a very high grade, relatively speaking, for these materials grade, remembering that the value per kilo of our material is multiples of most of the others because dysprosium and terbium are the highest value rare earths themselves. So we are really on our way here. This deposit is open at depth. The plan is that as we go towards production, we build our first processing plant for the Wolverine deposit. We have 1,800 square kilometres of ground around us. We have a single structure that I won't delve into, but a single dome structure that we know has many mineralisation events, and we think we can scale this ultimately to be the world's leading supplier of dysprosium and terbium. So there is a clear pathway to that value. We are looking at the debt financing structures. We have the regulatory approvals. We have great support from the environment and the community. I think we have a team now that we know, we have a team, not now, we have a team in place that knows what it's doing, and we're on our way to really focusing sharply on getting this production up. So that's what we're doing. That's really the proposition that we have. We're not going to make our life more complex than building the underground mine and the float circuit. We've sold the concentrate to Iluka. We are well positioned to be exposed to what I think will be a really, really important metal into the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nick.